I lost half a stone on my first 2 weeks on Slimming World, and this is what I ate. Good morning, Monday today, and I'm starting with one of my favorite breakfasts recently, which is a mushroom and feta omelette with a tortilla wrap, kind of like a quesadilla. I'm not sure what's the best name for this breakfast. Let me know what you think it should be called in the comments, but in any case, to make it, I started by frying some mushrooms on my non-stick pan and then whisked 2 eggs in a little bowl and seasoned with salt and pepper. And I've been obsessed with chives recently. I love the flavor they give and they last ages in the fridge, so I added a little handful in with the eggs. I then poured my egg mixture on the mushrooms and then crumbled 45 grams of feta as my healthy extra A. I then topped with one of these Weight Watchers wraps, which is healthy extra B, and I flipped it so it can crisp up. And I was actually cutting my apple while it was cooking, so it got a bit more charred than usual, but it was delicious anyway. I served on my plate and cut in half, and this tastes so good, and because of the amount of feta, it reminds me of a tiropita, aka a Greek cheese pie. I love a savory breakfast, and this is so satisfying. It's been my go-to recently. Let me know if your team savory or sweet for breakfast, by the way. There will be some sweet options later in the video, but I must admit this is probably my favorite. I just love anything with feta. I had this with an apple for some extra speed food, and that was breakfast. Later on, I'm ready for another tea and a snack, so I cut myself some fruit. I chose orange for more speed food and having one of these lemon biscuits, which is 3.5 cents and goes so well with a cup of tea. I just love my tea and biscuits, and I love that I can incorporate it into my diet and still lose weight. It's been a very productive morning so far. I took Elsie out for a walk. I did a 20-minute workout, which felt so good to be back doing workouts and being able to lie on my back and things like that. And I've just spent the morning editing and just doing baby stuff basically. I had a Tesco delivery. I still haven't finished putting stuff away, but it's 1 o'clock. I need to make some lunch, but I'm too hungry, so I made myself a little snack. It smells delicious. I just love fresh basil, so let's have a bite and then I'll make some lunch. And I thought today I'll make some chicken souvlaki, which is basically chicken thighs and vegetables in skewers, and I'm thinking either with potatoes if I have the time before baby wakes up, or with rice. Both will work great, so yeah, let's have a quick bite and then let's make some lunch. So good. So yummy. For my chicken souvlaki, I'm using some thyme, zaatar, garlic powder and some soy sauce for that extra depth of flavor and saltiness. And I'm using chicken thigh fillets here, but I've also made them with chicken breast and both work great, but the chicken thigh is more flavorful, so I just chose boneless and skinless for it to be free. So I just added all the spices, seasoned with salt and pepper, and gave it a good mix. I then added the vegetables and chicken pieces in my skewers and placing them in my air fryer. I'm actually going to be grilling them in my air fryer as my oven is not great at grilling and I find the air fryer so much faster, but you can also use your oven grill. I sprayed with some fry light and put them in the grill to cook until the chicken was cooked through. And then I actually didn't have a lot of time to chop potatoes, and I remembered I had these sweet potato chunks in my freezer, so I'm just adding them to a baking pan lined with baking paper and seasoning with salt and pepper and some paprika. I then placed them in the oven to bake for about half an hour. And
And now my souvlaki were ready and they looked and smelled so delicious. So to serve, I added some green salad to my bowl and then added some sweet potatoes and 2 of these skewers. And I don't know what it is about souvlaki, I know it's just chicken and vegetables, but for some reason making them into skewers felt a lot more fun and exciting, and it looked so pretty. I was very excited to tuck into my lunch. Then later on, of course, I'm having more snacks. I had 2 of these hi-fi bars and also a yogurt bowl that I prepared with some raspberries for some speed food, banana for sweetness, and some honey for extra flavor and sweetness. And I tried one of these bedtime teas. It sounded delicious with vanilla and nutmeg, but it was actually a bit disappointing, and in my opinion the flavor was quite weak, but anyways. And then dinner time, I decided to make a pizza, and my go-to quick pizza is the one that you can make by combining flour and Greek yogurt, but in all honesty I was in a hurry, so I didn't measure the yogurt properly, and spoiler alert, it ended up being a fail. But if you do want to make the correct ratios are 1.5 cups of self-raising flour and 1 cup Greek yogurt. And if you don't have self-raising flour, you can also use all-purpose and some baking powder, which is what I did here, but as you can see I put way too much yogurt for the amount of flour, so it was a very wet dough. So we're scrapping that, and we got the Weight Watchers wraps come to the rescue, as I'm using one of them as my pizza base and then topping with this pizza sauce, which is the best thing ever and it's free. I then topped with 40 grams of mozzarella as a healthy extra A and 3 pepperoni slices for 1.5 cents. And some mushrooms for some speed food. And this doesn't take long to cook, and you definitely need to keep an eye as it can burn very quickly, but mine was ready in about 5 to 7 minutes at 200 degrees Celsius. And for some extra flavor, I topped with a bit of fresh basil once it got out of the oven, and my pizza was ready.
It's been a long day, but I've got pizza, so a great end to the day. As you saw, I messed up the original plan for my pizza, but those Weight Watchers wraps have been amazing because, yeah, they're so low in sins and I really like them. So that pizza sauce just makes the best pizzas. I'll see you tomorrow.
Tuesday today, and I wanted a quick and easy breakfast, and on these days a yogurt bowl is my go-to option. I served myself some 0% Greek yogurt and then topping with a chopped apple and half a banana. I then topped with some sugar-free jam and 45 grams of muesli as my healthy extra B. Perfect quick breakfast option that you can also meal prep from the day before and take with you to work or school. Then later on I wanted a savory snack, so I'm making some crisp breads with Laughing Cow cheese and some smoked salmon. 3 of these is a healthy extra A, and for the crisp breads I personally seen these as I keep my healthy extra B choices for more exciting things like hi-fi bars or wholemeal pitas. 2 of these are 3 cents, so perfect for a little snack. And then back to sweet, I'm having a cup of tea and trying one of my new caramelized biscuit bars, plus the gingerbread, which has become my all-time favorite.
It's been a very hectic morning. I was quite busy, and then I had my group, which went great. If you saw my previous 2 videos, you'll have seen that I lost 5.5 pounds on my first week. So I was very, very happy about that because I had a very yummy and very nutritious week of eating. So hopefully we'll have another good week this week. I thought I'd show you a couple of things that I got. As always, I love getting some like fun treats after I go to group because it just keeps me inspired and excited about the week ahead. I've already tried the caramelized biscuit bar. It was very good, but this gingerbread is amazing. I bought loads of this. I'm very scared when they run out. If you like biscuits, I feel like this just hits the spot. But this was also good, caramelized biscuit. I've been more into like non-chocolatey bars, and these 2 so good, but the gingerbread is the best in my opinion. And I also got 2 of my favorite jams because sins on these are so good. For a teaspoon is only half a cent, and they actually give so much sweetness to things, especially like things like yogurt and stuff. So I got 4 fruits and I got blackcurrant. Usually I go for raspberry, but I thought I'd mix it up. Yeah, I just love these, and those were my favorite even before starting Slimming World. I didn't realize they were so good in terms of sins. which makes sense because they don't have any sugar. It's just fruit and unsweetened fruit juice concentrate, grape date. So that's great that they work great for Slimming World. And just generally, I found that I haven't actually changed the kind of things that I eat that much. I've just made little adjustments, like watching out how much oil I use, because obviously that's higher in sins and it doesn't fill you up. So, I mean, fat does fill you up, but yeah. Anyways, I'm excited for another week.
Lunchtime, and I'm making a low-effort Greek classic, pork chops with potatoes in the oven. To make it, I chopped a bunch of potatoes in wedge shapes. And ideally I would have boiled them first and add them to the pan, but I was too lazy, so I'm adding them straight to the baking pan, and I will be cooking them for 20 minutes before I add my pork chops on top. So once I added them to my pan, I added the juice of half a lemon, some salt and pepper, and some water and fry lot so they don't stick. I covered with foil and put them in the oven to bake. And while they're baking, I prepped some peppers by chopping them roughly. And I love to try to add veggies wherever I can. That's one of the things I like about Slimming World, is that it encourages me to add more of the good stuff into my diet instead of restricting. So now my potatoes had 20 minutes in the oven, so I took the foil out and adding the peppers and the pork steaks. I seasoned with salt and pepper and some oregano and put them back in the oven to bake until the potatoes and meat were cooked through. And once it was ready, I added some salad leaves to my bowl and adding 2 pork steaks and lots of those yummy potatoes. And of course, finishing off with lots of lemon juice on top, as lemon makes any dish so much better. And for it to be free, I just don't eat the fatty part, which in all honesty is so tasty, but on the day my dog Elsie enjoyed that instead.
Perfect. Lemon makes potatoes so much better. Lemon makes everything better. Who am I kidding? Gonna go enjoy. Pepper, good.
After lunch, you know I need something sweet, so today we're making a quick Greek yogurt eaten mess with some fresh raspberries, the blackcurrant jam, and some lemon curd and meringue nests, of course. I just love this dessert. It's so light but still very sweet from the meringue, and it hits the spot every time. Then for dinner, I prepped some pepper soup, so I chopped a bunch of peppers and adding them to roast in a baking pan with some garlic cloves to intensify the flavor. I simply added everything to my baking pan and then topped with a teaspoon of olive oil, salt and pepper, and a bit of fry light. I then placed them in the oven to roast for 20 to 30 minutes. And now to make the soup, I started by sauteing an onion on my pan first and seasoning with salt and pepper. And if the onions start to get stuck on the pan, I simply add a splash of water to deglaze the pan, and that helps with reducing the amount of olive oil I use in the recipes. And now my peppers were ready, so I'm adding the rest of the ingredients to my soup. For spices, I used paprika and basil, so I added those in, and then again adding a tiny bit of water, and then the peppers. And to make the soup more filling and increase the fiber even more, I'm also adding a can of butter beans. I gave everything a good stir and then topping with some water and a veggie stock cube. And for some extra flavor, I'm adding a tablespoon of pesto. I then let it simmer for a few hours, and then dinner time I just used my immersion blender to make it all nice and creamy. And this is the perfect consistency for me, but you can also add more water if you like a thinner soup. I'm having my soup with a wholemeal pita as a healthy extra B, so I'm just adding one to my toaster to toast. And I do keep my bread and pitas in the freezer, as I never eat them quickly enough, so that way they keep much longer and I don't waste them. I served my soup in a bowl and topped with a basil leaf to make it look fancy, and then having my pita on the side plus 90 grams of ricotta, as I realized I only had one healthy extra A for the day, so I thought ricotta would work so well with this soup. And you actually get so much for your healthy extra A, and it's high in protein. I just love ricotta. Wednesday today, and it was a day with both kids on my own, so if you made it this far into the video, give me a like to show your support for trying to film with a toddler and a newborn. For breakfast, I went back to my favorite with my feta omelette tortilla thing. We actually made them with my daughter as she loves this too. And of course an apple, as I love starting my day with fruit, and since it's apple season, the apples have been so yummy. My favorite variety is red gala apples. Let me know what's your favorite kind of apple. For lunch, I decided to keep things easy for me, so I prepped a Moroccan stew in my Instant Pot, which turned out so delicious. I don't know what it is about slow cooker meals, they turn out so delicious and comforting. And this is inspired by Sainsbury's soup that I had in the past that was so delicious, so I basically tried to recreate it by looking at the ingredients list. To make it, I added some onion, carrots and garlic to saute for a few minutes, and then a bunch of spices. And I'm not gonna lie, this was a pretty chaotic recipe. I was just adding spices that I had in my cupboard that I thought would work well in this, so I didn't really write up the recipe, but I think I used about 2 teaspoons of each spice, but you can easily adjust this and use whatever you have and whatever you like. I then added my chicken breast fillet, some chickpeas and a chicken stock cube. Lastly, I added some chopped tomatoes seasoned with salt and pepper and added some boiling water. I put it on pressure cook for about 30 minutes and this is how it came out. The chicken had completely fallen apart and it looked and smelled amazing. But since I made it in the morning, I then put it on slow cook until it was lunchtime. To serve, I added some salad leaves, of course. I love having about half of my plate with greens as my speed food, and then added some basmati rice that I simply boiled. Lastly, I topped with my stew and my lunch was ready. Minimum effort for this one, so perfect for a busy day, and it made lots of leftovers too.
It smells delicious and the chicken has fallen apart so nicely, so I can't wait to tuck in. So good. And the carrots are nice and soft. I don't know what it is about the Instant Pot / slow cooker. It cooks the carrots and just all the vegetables so nicely. They're always so soft. I'm gonna let this cool and enjoy. So warming, so good.
Later on, I had a bowl of fruit as my snack. I did an apple, a banana and a kiwi, and also 2 of these hi-fi bars. And then dinner time, I usually want something quick and easy, so I started by making myself a little side dish of sliced cucumber for some extra speed food. I seasoned with salt and added some vinegar, and then to increase the protein, I'm also adding some cottage cheese on the side, and that's such a great combo with the cucumber, but you can also do carrot sticks as they work great with dipping on the cottage cheese as well. And then I had some leftover potatoes from lunch yesterday, so I decided to make one of my all-time Greek comfort meals, patates mavgam, which is basically chips with eggs. And since the potatoes were already cooked, these came together so quickly. And then after dinner, I wanted a little treat with my mint tea, and I love dark chocolate, so I'm having 2 squares of this Lindt, which was 6 cents for the 2 squares. Thursday today, and I'm starting with an apple and a cup of tea while I was doing some editing in the morning. And then for my actual breakfast, I decided to make a version of Eggs Benedict, but much lighter and easier. I started by making some creamy mushrooms as a side, as I wanted some extra speed food, and I've just been loving mushrooms. To make them, I added some sliced mushrooms on my pan and seasoned with salt and pepper. And to make this creamy, I'll be using a Laughing Cow cheese, so once the mushrooms were cooked, I added the cheese on top and some chives and let it melt. I also added a splash of water to help the cheese create a creamy sauce and stirred around, so all the mushrooms get coated in the creamy sauce. I'm also doing some poached eggs, so I just lowered my eggs in simmering water and let it cook for a few minutes. And now my bagel was toasted. I used one of these protein ones as a healthy extra B, and then the 2 other Laughing Cow cheese as my healthy extra A. So I just spread the cheese on my bagel, and then I'm adding some ham on top. Once my eggs were cooked, I added them on top of the bagel and seasoned with salt and pepper. I also topped with a bit more chives as I just love the flavor they give. I served my creamy mushrooms on the side and breakfast was ready, and look at that perfect yolk.
Perfection. And I made the mushrooms like that last week and they were amazing, so I had to recreate them to show you how to make the easiest creamy mushrooms, because if you like mushrooms and if you like creamy things, you just have to make them. They are delicious.
For lunch, I wanted to use up some of the leftover rice from yesterday, so I thought I'd make a quick and easy fried rice. And since I was quite lazy, I decided to use frozen veg, so I'm only chopping some onion and mushrooms as the base, and then some tofu for my protein. I cooked my tofu first in the pan, although to be honest, I should have just put it in the air fryer as it makes it so much nicer and crispier, but I was too lazy to wash my air fryer, so I'm just doing everything in one pan. Once the tofu was cooked, I removed it from the pan and I'm adding all my vegetables to fry. I used a combination of fry light and sesame oil as I love the flavor and fragrance it gives. I started by cooking the onion first. Ideally, I would have added some ginger and garlic too, but I was out, so if you do have these, definitely add them as they're the perfect base for a stir fry or fried rice. I then added my vegetables. I let them cook for a few minutes. I did mushrooms, some sweet corn that I found in my fridge, and these frozen vegetables, which is basically broccoli, cauliflower, peas and carrots. I then added some soy sauce, which is free, and some sriracha, which I didn't season as I used the tiniest bit, but if you do want to season it, it's a half season for a tablespoon, so not very much at all. For spices, I used Chinese 5 spice, so I just added some in and stirring everything together and occasionally adding splashes of hot water so things don't get stuck in the pan. I then added some rice. I definitely added way too much here as I'm only preparing this for myself, but I like to have a big portion of good food to make sure I'm satisfied, and to be honest, I didn't serve all of it at the end. I let the rice warm through and then also added some spring onions. Lastly, I added an egg for extra protein and scrambled it on the side of the pan. I mixed everything well and my fried rice was ready to serve. And to serve, I added some rocket to my bowl for some extra speed food and then topped with the fried rice and the tofu. And you know I love my citrus, so I finished it off with a good squeeze of lime on top, and that was lunch. Perfect for a busy day and to use up different bits and bobs you might have lying on the fridge. And then for dessert, I wanted to make like a cheesecake type of thing. I wouldn't call this a cheesecake now that I've had it, more like a yogurt dessert, but in any case, it turned out delicious. I started by making a chia jam, which is super quick and easy to make. I simply added some frozen berries to my pan and a splash of water and let it cook for a few minutes until it's fully defrosted and the berries are nice and soft. I then added my chia seeds and gave it a good mix. And now the chia seeds will absorb the extra liquid and make it into a nice jammy consistency. And I personally don't sin fruit even if it's cooked. I know Slimming World says otherwise, but I'm just a rebel like that. And now on to making my dessert. I'm mixing a teaspoon of lemon curd to my Greek yogurt to make it all nice and lemony and give it some sweetness. And then I'll be using these biscuit flavored bars, which are one of their sweetest bars, so perfect for a dessert. So I basically layered the bar that I crumbled up with my hands with the yogurt and then adding some more bar crumbles and more yogurt. I used 2 bars for this and I seasoned this as I'm using other healthy extras, so there were 6 tins for the 2. I let it in the fridge to cool for a bit, and when I was ready to eat, I topped with about half of the jam that I made, and this was such a delicious dessert. I didn't expect it to be so nice. The yogurt was so creamy and sweet, and the jam added a nice tartness. 10 out of 10. Then another simple snack of apple and cheese, and then for dinner I like to keep things simple and quick, and that's why I love having leftovers in the fridge, as you can make a delicious and healthy meal in 5 minutes with no effort. So as you can see, I had loads of the Moroccan stew left over, so I'm warming some up to have for my dinner. I'm also adding some greens on the side for speed food, and then for carbs I'm doing a wholemeal pita that I used as a healthy extra B. And finishing the day off with some dark chocolate, I'm trying out the sea salt one today, which was also delicious. And we made it to Friday, so I thought let's make some pancakes for another sweet breakfast option. And spoiler alert, this turned out so good, one of my best pancakes recently. To make them, I simply add all the ingredients in my food processor and blend well. So that's oats, eggs, cottage cheese, banana and some cinnamon. And again, I don't personally season fruit even if I blend it and cook it, but you can if you want to. For toppings, I'm using my leftover berry jam from the day before and some honey. And this turned out so delicious, but I definitely had eyes bigger than my stomach. I actually couldn't finish the whole plate. I think because of the cottage cheese, they were so filling, but absolutely delicious. Later on, I had a savory snack, so I prepared a couple crisp breads with some ricotta and baby tomatoes. And as I said, I love using ricotta as my healthy extra. You get 90 grams as a healthy extra A, and I love how creamy it is. And for any Greeks that live abroad, it's very similar to anthotiro, which is one of my favorite Greek cheeses. Lunchtime, and I'm preparing some chicken in my air fryer, but on the grill setting. For spices, I'm using zaatar, sumac and thyme, so I just added some on top and sprayed with some fry light and seasoned with salt and pepper. And while my chicken is grilling, I had a craving for a Waldorf salad, so I'm prepping all my veggies and fruits for it. So I just chopped a celery stick, an apple and some grapes in small pieces ready for my salad. I added everything to a bowl plus some walnuts that I chopped up in small pieces as well. I used 25 grams of walnuts, which are 8.5 cents, and this made 2 portions, but 5 walnut halves can also be your healthy extra B if you haven't used it for the day. And now my chicken was cooked, so I'm ready to serve. I started with some rocket for some extra speed food and then topped with half of my Waldorf salad. For the side, I also cooked up some quinoa, so I served that in my bowl and then added 2 chicken breasts. And this was such a delicious and filling lunch, and you know these meals that you have that make you feel amazing, and this was it. After lunch I had a couple bars for dessert and then later on some fruit. And dinner time we're going back to pizza because that's probably one of my favorite meals and I could have it every single day. So this was my second week on Slimmy World. If you missed the first 2 videos I did for my first week, I'll have them linked in the description box below, and I also made a new weight loss playlist that includes all of them. Let me know if you enjoyed this longer video and leave a pizza emoji if you made it this far. Okay, bye!